Welcome to ePathshala. I am Dr. Vibha Sinha, Assistant Professor in DAV College, Chandigarh. The role played by the state, local level and other institutions in framing the policies are very important. Most of the public policies, they deal with social problems existing in society. For this, the government needs to plan, make a strategy and do everything for its implementation. One such big program or policy that the government brought about is National Rural Employment Guarantee Act, known as NREGA. This act provides livelihood security to people in rural areas. It provides 100 days of wage employment to each household within a financial year. However, the work involved are of unskilled nature and manual work related to soil erosion, deforestation and drought conditions. Now these are very important in order to bring about the development in particular rural area. The involvement of these actors and institutions that led to the formation of NREGA is very important. Objectives of the module: number 1, role played by the political leaders, bureaucrats and civil society in the formulation of public policy. Number 2, role of state and local level institutions in the formulation of public policies. The word policy in general is used to describe a formal decision or plan of action adopted by an actor, be it an individual, organization, business, government, etc., in order to achieve a particular goal. In other words, policy refers to a broad statement that reflects future goals and aspirations and provide guidelines for carrying out those goals. Hill defines policy as the product of political influence, determining and setting limits to what the state does. To be more specific, when a government takes a decision or chooses a course of action in order to solve a social problem and adopts a specific strategy for its planning and implementation, it is known as public policy. Public policy is not merely a technical function of government. Rather, it is a complex interactive process influenced by the diverse nature of socio-political and other environmental forces. Thus, policy making is not a simple, rather a complex dynamic process involving a series of actions and inactions of varieties of groups with varieties of interests at different stages. It involves not only the public bodies or public officials as policy actors. Rather, private or non-official groups also play a very active role in policy making. Some of the agencies which take part in policy formulation are legislature, cabinet, state governments, civil servants, judiciary, boards and commissions, mass media, political parties, pressure groups and citizens. It is essential to examine the role of these agencies in the formulation of a policy. Therefore, this paper deconstructs the formulation story to a recently formulated social policy in India, the National Rural Employment Guarantee Act, that is NREGA, through a process-oriented view so that the role of actors as well as institutions can be examined. This paper is divided into 2 sections and subsections. The first section describes the policy and the second section explains the way the policy has been formulated. Second section is further divided into 4 subsections describing the role played by various agencies. For the purpose of simplification, various agencies have been divided into 4 spheres: Parliament, Executive, political parties, and civil society. Section 1, National Rural Employment Guarantee Act, that is NREGA. In a context of poverty and unemployment, workforce programs have been important interventions in developed as well as developing countries for many years. These programs typically provide unskilled manual workers with short-term employment on public works such as irrigation infrastructure, reforestation, soil conservation, and road construction. In India, the need to evolve a mechanism to supplement existing livelihood sources in rural areas was recognized since independence. The government initiated programs or schemes that offered wage employment on public works at minimum wages. The wage employment programs, which started as pilot projects to benefit the poorest of the poor, were Rural Manpower (RMP), Crash Scheme for Rural Employment (CRSE), Pilot Intensive Rural Employment Program (PIREP), Small Farmers Development Agency (SFDA), Marginal Farmers and Agricultural Labour Scheme (MFAL). These experiments were translated into a full-fledged wage employment program in 1977 in the form of Food for Work program, that is FWP. In the 1980s, this program was further streamlined into the National Rural Employment Program (NREP) and Rural Landless Employment Guarantee Program. Jawahar Rozgar Yojana, that is JRY, Employment Assurance Scheme (EAS), and the Jawahar Rozgar Yojana was merged with Jawahar Gram Samriddhi Yojana from 1999 to 2000 and was made a rural reinfrastructure program. The program was merged with Sampurna Gramin Rozgar Yojana from 2001 to 2002 and National Food for Work in 2005. These wage employment programs implemented by state governments with central assistance were self-targeting, and the objective was to provide and enhance livelihood security, especially for those dependent on casual manual labor. Based on the experience of these programs, the National Rural Employment Guarantee Act was enacted to enforce the commitment towards livelihood security in rural areas. The Act was notified on 7 September 2005 and implemented in most backward districts of the country in February 2006. Since April 2008, it has been implemented in all districts of the country. The significance of NREGA lies in the fact that it creates a right-based framework for wage employment programs and makes the government legally accountable for providing employment to those who ask for it. It is the largest social welfare program of its kind, with a current budget of USD 8.78 billion. The NREGA aims at enhancing the livelihood security of the people in rural areas by guaranteeing 100 days of wage employment in a financial year to a rural household whose members volunteer to do unskilled manual work. The objective of the Act is to create durable assets and strengthen the livelihood resource base of the rural poor. The choice of work suggested in the Act address causes of chronic poverty like drought, deforestation, soil erosion, so that the process of employment generation is on sustainable basis. The funding procedure under this Act is divided between central and the state government. The central government bears the cost of the following items: the entire cost of wages of unskilled manual work, 75% of the cost of material, wages of skilled and semi-skilled workers. Administrative expenses as may be determined by the central government, which will include inter alia the salary and the allowances of the program officer and his supporting staff, worksite facilities included. Next, expenses of the National Employment Guarantee Council. On the other hand, the state government bears the cost of the following items. Number 1, 25% of the cost of material, wages of skilled and semi-skilled workers. Number 2, unemployment allowance payable in case the state government cannot provide wage employment on time. And lastly, administrative expenses of the State Employment Guarantee Council. Under NREGA, fund releases are based on an appraisal of both financial and physical indicators of outcomes. Salient features of the Act are: adult members of a rural household may apply for employment to the local Gram Panchayat in writing or orally. The Gram Panchayat, after due verification, will issue a job card to the household as a whole. The job card will bear the photograph of all adult members of the household willing to work under NREGA. The job card with photograph is free of cost. A job card holding household may submit a written application for employment to the Gram Panchayat stating the time and duration for which work is sought. The minimum days of employment have to be 15. The Gram Panchayat will issue a dated receipt of the written application for employment against which the guarantee of providing employment within 15 days operates. If employment is not provided within 15 days, daily unemployment allowance in case has to be paid. Liability of payment of unemployment allowance is of the states. Next, at least 1/3 of persons to whom work is allotted have to be women. Wages are to be paid according to minimum wages as prescribed under the Minimum Wages Act 1948 for agriculture labourers in the state, unless the centre notifies a wage rate which will not be less than ₹60 per day. Next, disbursement of wages has to be done on weekly basis and not beyond a fortnight. Panchayat Raj institutions have a principal role in planning and implementation. Each district has to prepare a shelf of projects. The selected works to provide employment are to be selected from the list of permissible works. The different categories of permissible works are as follows: water conservation, drought proofing, flood protection, land development, minor irrigation, horticulture, and land development on the land of SC, ST, BPL and land reform beneficiaries. Rural connectivity also. The shelf of projects has to be prepared on the basis of priority assigned by Gram Sabha. At least 50% of works have to be allocated to Gram Panchayats for execution. A 60:40 wage and material ratio has to be maintained. Next, work should ordinarily be provided within 5-kilometer radius of the village, or else extra wages of 10% are payable. Worksite facilities such as creche, drinking water, shade have to be provided. Social audit has to be done by the Gram Sabha. Grievance redressal mechanism have to be put in place for ensuring a responsive implementation process. Lastly, all accounts and records relating to the scheme are to be made available to any person desirous of obtaining a copy of such records on demand and after paying a specified fee. Section 2 deals with formulation story of NREGA. The actors and institutions involved in the formulation of any policy can be classified into 4 spheres, namely parliamentary, executive, political party, and civil society. The multiple actors and institutions engaged in these 4 spheres operate right from the origin of the idea to its articulation, negotiation, and enactment and final notification of any act or policy. Secondly, the processes of formulating a policy involve both the formal and mandated events such as parliamentary debates as well as the informal events. The parliamentary sphere. This includes the actors and institutions comprising the sphere of parliament that are basically engaged in 2 main processes. The first of these revolved around debates in the lower house of parliament, that is Lok Sabha, and the upper house of parliament, that is Rajya Sabha. The second process involves the deliberation and negotiation procedure within the parliamentary bodies such as standing committees and ad hoc committees. In case of NREGA, the parliamentary negotiations started with the introduction of the NREGA bill in the Lok Sabha by Minister for Rural Development Dr. Raghuvansh Prasad in December 2004. This was done primarily because there was a pressure on the United Progressive Alliance, that is UPA government, to fulfill its commitments as set out in the National Common Minimum Program. Despite the pressure, the bill could not be tabled till the second last day of December session. Since there was no time for discussion at that point, the bill was immediately referred to the Standing Committee for Rural Development, a statutory body comprised of several parliamentarians with representatives from all political parties. The Standing Committee first invited memoranda from the general public to bring forth a wide variety of views on the bill. Second, experts were invited to present oral evidence for depositions in front of the committee members. The recommendations that were made by the Standing Committee in their report reflect several concerns of the civil society actors. The most significant suggestions given by the committee was universalization of employment guarantee, which means that employment guarantee should not be restricted to those below the official poverty line, that is BPL. The Standing Committee favors a universal, self-targeting employment and participation that will be ensured by the nature of the work to be and the wage to be provided by it. Another important situation was of assigning a comprehensive responsibility to panchayats for the implementation of the scheme. In April 2005, more than 4 months after the NREGA bill was directed to the Standing Committee, the Ministry of Rural Development was asked by the National Advisory Council to expedite the process of the bill. The Standing Committee finally submitted its report to the Parliament in June 2005. The parliamentary process restarted with intense discussions in the Lok Sabha after a second revised draft was tabled in Parliament on 18 August 2005. The total discussion in the Lok Sabha lasted for almost 14 hours over 3 days, at the end of which the bill was passed unanimously on 23 August 2005. The Rajya Sabha also saw lengthy debates and a lot of interest in the subject of the bill and also approved the bill the next day. The executive sphere, this includes the role that various ministries and bureaucrats and other actors play in the formulation of the bill and its subsequent amendments, as well as the operational guidelines and rules that were made for the Act. The main institutions within this sphere included the Prime Minister's Office, Ministry of Panchayati Raj, the Planning Commission, the Cabinet, the Ministry of Rural Development, and other relevant ministries and the group of ministers. The bill tabled within the Parliament is drafted by the Ministry of Rural Development, the nodal ministry in charge of drafting the policy document. But the acting of drafting the bill began with the interministerial task group comprising of bureaucrats from the Ministry of Rural Development, Agriculture, Panchayati Raj, Labour, Planning Commission, Finance, and the PMO. However, the Standing Committee mainly interacted with Ministry of Rural Development to seek clarification. It was decided that Panchayati Raj institutions will be the primary mechanism as implementation and monitoring authority. Several meetings were held between the ministers, Ministry of Rural Development and the Defence Minister, the Prime Minister and others, highlighting the important role of powerful actors as well as the interactions between the bureaucratic and parliamentary spheres. Finally, the Cabinet met on 12 August 2005 and approved various changes in the bill. The next includes the sphere of political parties. This shows how the idea of an Employment Guarantee Act was taken on board by the various political parties and leaders. The Minister for Rural Development, Dr. Raghuvansh Prasad, while introducing the NREGA bill, dwelt on its potential of ensuring livelihood security through guaranteed wage employment or unemployment compensation to rural population. Professor Rasa Singh Rawat and Ramji Lal Suman of BSP contested the exclusion of urban poor. Kalyan Singh demanded punitive arrangements for faulting bureaucrats and special provision for women. Hanan Molla, the CPM leader, said that the right to work needs constitutional sanctions rather than legal ones, while Nitish Kumar of JD questioned the efficacy of employment by household when unemployment is suffered individually. The idea of providing a guarantee of employment was manifested itself in the manifesto of the Congress for the 2004 election. This was an appealing idea to politically wise leaders of the Congress as a reflection of the Aam Aadmi campaign that the Congress had decided to adopt for the upcoming elections of 2004. Another major set of actors within the sphere of political parties who extended tremendous influence over the process of formulating the act were left parties. According to them, their idea of providing guaranteed employment is linked to the Food for Work program. The direct intervention of left parties was observed when they demonstrated their support and worked with the civil society actors in rallies and public meetings, but the most visible and effective involvement was seen in the Parliament. It was in the Parliament when the left exerted its pressure on the UPA to avoid the passage of a flawed and diluted act through last-minute parliamentary negotiations within the UPA Left Coordination Committee in August 2005 and was able to win some crucial concessions. The role of left parties in the formulation of the rules and guidelines has also been significant through their interventions as members of the Central Employment Guarantee Council and their continuing monitoring of the Act's implementation. The civil society sphere has also been included, that is, within the wide variety of groups that were involved, the contribution of actors from Rajasthan stands out the strongest. The demand for an employment guarantee arose in Rajasthan from two consecutive contexts. First, being the drought-affected state, public works program was required in the state. Second, the acknowledgement of a link between the right to food and the right to work by the Indian Supreme Court in a public interest litigation filed by People's Union for Civil Liberties. The PUCL was one of the member organizations of the Akal Sangharsh Samiti and itself comprised a group of actors who were linked to a larger movement called the Right to Food movement. Other than this context, two factors which helped the Rajasthan actors to push their demand for an employment guarantee onto the political agenda at the centre were, first, the onset of elections within the Rajasthan, and second, the Congress' need for promoting its image of a party of the Aam Aadmi. Other civil society actors joined the contribution of the actors from Rajasthan at the national level. The most important initiative was that of various civil society actors coming together under a common umbrella network, the People's Action for Employment Guarantee, that is PAEG, in October 2005. With the realization that a more concerted media campaign as well as pressure on the government would be required if a reinstatement of several of the clauses was to be effected, the PAEG organized a Rozgar Adhikar Yatra, a bus journey across 50 districts in 10 states in May and June 2005. The bus yatra was supported by trade unions, left party offices and other civil society organizations. Activity within the sphere of civil society reached its peak during the last weeks of the bill's negotiation in August 2005. This period was characterized by a dharna, which was staged during the last few days of the bill being tabled in Parliament. At this stage then, the civil society initiatives were of three types: contacting and informally convincing the political party MPs, thereby influencing parliament debates from the outside. Secondly, working with the officials to make necessary changes in the bill. The officials belong to MORD. And thirdly, the public pressure on the government to pass the bill, but only with the demanded safeguards reinstated in the bill. In short, it can be said that civil society initiatives reached beyond the civil society sphere to exert its influence over all other spheres as well. Let me conclude that policy making is a complex and dynamic process. No doubt, the state plays a principal role in this, but other activists, civil society representatives and political parties are also involved. The institution within the judicial sphere are the ministers, the Prime Minister's office, Panchayati Raj Ministry, Ministry of Rural Development, etc. They are actually the executive members. The combined efforts of all these members and the executive body led to the notification of NREGA on 7th of September 2005.